Hello, everybody, and welcome to now the sixth official BadMotoGP podcast. And we have Declan here from Everythingmotoracing. You might as well follow follow him if you don't do it already, because this is where I get all my real information. So thank you very much for joining me. Is
Thank
this
you for
like
having me on.
is this your first real face reveal podcast?
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever shown my face in public ever. So it's nerve-wracking, to be honest, because, yeah, I mean, I had a guy threaten me threaten me at Silverstone a few years ago. We didn't know what it looked like, so it's fine. But, yeah, so a bit nerve-wracking, bit scary, but it's all good. It's all good.
You might wanna train some jiu-jitsu now, and then you
Yeah.
can go to Silverstone safely.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, I should do that.
What's the story behind the threatening?
What was it? Somebody was, I don't know, he's just been an idiot on like a post. And I just said to him, I literally just replied to him as like, just stop being a troll kind of thing. That's all I said to him. And he went absolutely nuts. And then he like messaged me on the DMs and was like going, "Where are you? Where are you? Come and say that to my face in person." Da, da, da. And then he emailed me as well. He sent me an email address. He made an email address. He went out of his way to make an email address using my name, but like a slur version of my name. And then, yeah, just sent me like emails harassing me and all this. And I was just like, what on earth, bro? All I did was called you a troll. And suddenly now you're like trying to kill me. Like, jeez.
Sounds reasonable, I guess.
Yeah, something like that. It's totally normal behavior from a normal human being. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to me. Looking from the outside on like the meme account, I would think that a lot of people get upset, but there are so few people who ever got upset at me personally, like in my DMs or whatever. I mean,
Hmm.
occasional there is one. The biggest one was Dennis Önschu in Jerez in 2020. I don't know
Yeah.
if you have seen this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
remember it.
commented. It's still in my phone on screenshots, but it's not on Instagram anymore because Instagram banned my old account, and
Yeah.
that's why it's Bad MotoGP memes too now.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to find it.
Oh dear. Yeah, I do remember all that. I do remember that absolute chaos.
Had you any riders getting mad at you for something?
Yeah, I had Tony Elias go mental at me once.
Oh,
Because Hector Barbara got sacked for drink driving, and so I made a post like, and he was waving. I was like, "Bye, Hector," and I was like, "Hector Barbara has been sacked for drink driving offences," and he went nuts. He was like, "You don't realise that a rider losing their job and can like affect their life." But eventually, I just explained my point to him, and he eventually was like, "Okay, I get your point there. I understand that. I appreciate what you're saying. Very sorry." And then like, "Congratulations on the page," or whatever. And I was like, "Okay, fair enough."
yeah. I mean, you know what also could impact the life of somebody? Getting hit by a drunk driver.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. Pecco Magnolia.
so yeah, I don't. I think they did the right thing, but I
Hmm.
also got into an argument with somebody once about Pecco and his drunk driving, because the situation just happened, and there was one guy on Twitter who was like, "Okay, now Ducati don't have to choose between Jorge Martin and Enea Bastianini because they won't gonna do Pecco." And I was
Yeah.
like, "No, this is not how it works.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with my personal opinion on drunk driving. I was just like, Ducati won't sack Pecco because he's too fast.
Yeah.
That's the reality."
It'd
And
be
he
a
was like,
suicide.
"No, no, no."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, not suicide, because Enea Bastianini and Jorge
Now they've got
Martin would be
Anea, yeah.
very good replacement riders. Yeah,
Yes.
but they still wouldn't be doing it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's it. They would, I think, because of how on track Bagnaia was for the title as well, with his comeback and stuff, to kind of sack him there. I think, unfortunately, with Ducati, is this Ducati side of things, yes, I understand that, what Pecco did was really bad and it was a PR nightmare, PR disaster completely across the board. But for Ducati, I think they really just kind of tried to brush it under the rug a little bit and just be like, look, don't do it again. Um, because I think they just mainly focus more on the fact of they're going to win the title this year, and that was kind of their goal. And then if anything happened with Bagnaia, they would just have to kind of suck it up, really.
Yeah. I mean, what would you do if you were Dorna and you were in charge of punching Ryder because they did nothing, which in my opinion is wrong. So what would you do?
I think, I mean, yes, I get it that Bagnaia is the face of the sport because he's the current world champion. Bagnaia is obviously an athlete in the highest category. Is when you look at the top three riders in the championship last year, obviously Bagnaia is on the top of the tree. But I think in a PR thing, I think Dorna should have put out a statement and said they've condemned what Bagnaia has done. I think Ducati should have done the same. But in terms of punishment, I think they should have maybe fined him, but they can't ban him from races. They can't stop him from going out on races because then it becomes not an issue with Bagnaia and Dorna. It becomes an issue with Bagnaia, Dorna, and Ducati. And then it just becomes an absolute shitstorm of just chaos because Dorna, yes, although they have the rights to the championship, they have the rights to obviously Ducati and things like that. Ducati could easily, it's just a recipe for a lawsuit if Dorna tried to ban Bagnaia from competing in a race. That would just be lawsuit material all over.
I mean, I never have experienced something where a rider got banned for a race, but I
Well,
know
Onshu
that
did,
the
didn't he?
NFL is.
Onshu got banned, didn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. I forgot about that. But he was
Yeah.
also putting other riders on track in danger, but not like
And
for something that happened off track.
yeah, that's right. It was on the premises of MotoGP. It wasn't outside of the paddock kind of thing, which is
Yeah,
Bagnaia's was.
yeah. But I know that the NFL, they are banning people left and right for off-field misbehavior. If they're drunk driving, if they're hit domestic violence, or
Hmm.
the NFL is a crazy place. There's like people owning drugs or weapons which they aren't allowed to own, and all this crazy stuff.
Hmm.
If you never heard about it, Google like the top 10 NFL crimes or whatever, and it's really ridiculous. And the NFL, for example, there was a situation where Ray Rice is a
Hmm.
former running back, and he was pretty good at the time. He beat his girlfriend in an elevator. And the NFL, they banned him for one game for it. And there was a huge shitstorm because the video came out, the security video, and
Hmm.
then they banned him for life. And in my opinion, the sport has a right, because you're still representing the sport in a way, has a right to ban you for misbehaving off track or off field or whatever
Hmm.
when you're putting the reputation of the sport in danger.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, what I was thinking at the time, because he did it in a summer break, there were basically no real championship dangers for Quattararo yet,
Hmm.
because there was still like 70 points,
Yeah, it's
75
quite a
points
big
or
gap.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought at the time it would be good to ban him for the Silverstone race. It would be one race. And I thought, okay, this will put his championship completely away. But it wouldn't be too ridiculous to punish him, because nobody was hurt, anything. I
Hmm.
mean, it was just a stupid accident, but nothing really happened. So my solution would have been to ban him for one race, and which would have been Silverstone then, and go from there. But
I
yeah.
think with the NFL, it's a tough comparison to make because yes, you can ban an NFL player, but they've still got 20 plus players sat there who can play instead of them, and they're not going to lose the league, for example, if they're missing one player. Whereas Ducati, for example, on the other hand, if you take out their star man, yes, you can replace him with Michele Pirro. But at the end of the season, if Ducati don't win the championship, they don't win the constructors championship, they don't win the riders championship because Dorna have taken the step to ban the rider. There's all sorts of chaos that could arise from that. From Ducati going, well, it's your fault, Dorna, because you stopped this. We're now missing out on this money that we would have got for being champions if Bagnaia had raced that race, and they could build a whole case for it and absolutely sue them for it. So I get that, but it's a tricky one.
Yeah, I guess there's also a lot of leverage in play because Ducati has 8 bikes on the grid. Dorna isn't necessarily financially too stable. I've heard that they lost like 100 million during the pandemic and all of
Mm,
this. And with the sprint races, it's obvious they're struggling financially. Why would they do this otherwise?
yeah.
And therefore, I could imagine that Dorna says, okay, I don't give a shit about drunk driving or whatever, as long as I keep my top manufacturer happy, you know?
Yeah, that's it. Because Ducati are pouring so much money into the sport these days that, if they were to jeopardize a rider losing the championship like that, Ducati could withdraw and pull 8 bikes off the grid. And then you've got, it goes back to what MotoGP was back in 2012 when you need CRT bikes on them just to, bolster the grid up kind of thing.
Yeah. Every time I hear somebody complain about the 8 Ducatis, I think like go back to the CRT days and then complain
Mm.
again
Yeah,
because
when you had
nobody
like
wants to have this shit rehatched.
GSXRs on the grid and stuff. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were basically 4 competitive bikes. It was the 2 Repsol Hondas and the 2 Yamahas. The Ducatis weren't competitive and the satellite teams weren't necessarily competitive either.
No, they were like good for a top 5 every so often, but that was really it.
Yeah. But
Mm.
also they were only good for a top 5 because there was no competition. There was a stock bike, the competition.
Mm. That's it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
different times really, but yeah, the dark era of MotoGP that was. It was a dark time.
You think we could go back into such a dark time?
Oh, yeah. Potentially, it depends on the sponsorship. It depends on how Dorna tried to market the sport. They tried it with the Amazon documentary that they had. They got absolutely canned after 1 year. They're basically trying the F1 route of things, which is good. They're getting these influences in there. They're getting like big influencers to come and do the sport. I can't remember his name now. There's that guy Carby, is it? Who's at the San Marino race last year. I think Quattararo is a good face for the sport and a good way to push it forward. I think obviously losing Valentino Rossi has absolutely dented their pockets massively, as you'd expect, because Valentino Rossi is Valentino Rossi and he's been the face of the sport, whether you love or hate it, for the last 20 years. And so to lose a rider like that is massive, and there's no real rider who can fill those boots. Like Marquez has a great personality and he's likable. He's got all these good traits, but he's not got what Rossi had. Quattararo's got similar traits, but again, he has not got that X factor that Rossi had. And so it's difficult because then a lot of people left the sport because of Valentino Rossi. You've seen crowds absolutely dip because of it. And yes, you've got riders like Bezzecchi and obviously Marini are doing really well for Rossi's team and helping carry that name forward. But without Rossi there, people like they say like no Rossi, no party kind of thing. And I think it's very much the Rossi effect. I think MotoGP, if it continues to do these stupid decisions and rash decisions and making more and more races, like 21 races, like I'm getting to a point now where I'm like, I don't even want to watch this sport anymore. Like I adore this sport, but I'm like, I'm sat here faced with, another season, but instead of like, covering 21 races, now having to cover 42 races, over 21 rounds from March until November. I'm like, you know what? I kind of want a life. I don't want to be sat in front of a TV for 21 race weekends a year. I want to watch maybe 18 and still enjoy my Saturdays, not having to be as on it. They released the I'm going to go on a bit of a rant now about the sprint races. They released the calendar or like the time schedule the other day, and it was like 8 o'clock and then was the first one FP3 or something, and then the sprint race was 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So that's 7 hours, well 7+ hours because the sprint race finishes maybe 3:30. That's 7.5 hours of watching bikes go around track. It used to be that it would maybe start at 8 o'clock and then by 3 o'clock, all the sessions will be finished and you'll be done. And I'd be free from then to just go on with my day. But now I've got to spend another hour watching and talking about MotoGP. And then when you go to the flyaways and suddenly it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you've got to wait that extra hour. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think it's just making a lot of people like that. And a lot of people like the same, and they're doing everything they can to not bring people to the sport, but actually push them away. And I don't think they realize that they are doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they have the only goal in mind is to sell more sponsorship deals. And I don't get the point of making more races when the racing itself isn't fun.
The race is
So I
boring.
wouldn't
Like
be happy. Yeah,
it is. That's why
yeah.
World Superbikes is
You
so
just get.
good.
I'm actually thinking about it for now, half a year. I'm actually pretty happy that Remy is going over to Superbike
Oh, I'm delighted
because
for him.
First of all, he went to KTM as the world champion, and I remember how he interacted with me back in the day,
Hmm.
and it felt like he was much happier. You know, it felt like he made. If you hear the barking in the background, I'm sorry, somebody just rang the bell and the dog is going crazy, but the door shut. It should be okay. Do you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. But yeah, where I was going is that Remy, over the 2022 season, I felt like he wasn't as happy as he was in 2021.
Hmm.
And I felt it in the way we interacted with each other. And now he seemed to be more happy again.
Yeah.
He's enjoying himself a lot more.
Yeah. I think in a championship like World Superbikes, he can flourish because there are like I don't know. World Superbikes this year is going to be really good. Like I said, I've said the last 2 seasons, World Superbike has been better than MotoGP, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh no, it's not because it's got this." It's like, what reason can you think of that makes MotoGP better than World Superbikes? Because World Superbikes has open paddocks, so you can go in the paddock and talk to riders and see riders milling about. They've got 3 races, but they're spread over obviously 2 days. They're also really good races. They're quite short as well, which is nice. And you have the top guys obviously scrapping with each other. And yes, it's most of the time a 3-horse race, but then when something happens and it's not a 3-horse race and there's other riders in there, it creates that extra unpredictability. MotoGP is very unpredictable. It's great, but then that level of unpredictability also can go the opposite way and makes it unpredictability to the point where it's like it's a bit boring. You want to see the stars winning the races. You don't want to. You like back in the day, MotoGP in 2012, for example, was so good because you had Stoner, you had Rossi, you had Lorenzo, you had Pedrosa, absolutely giving it hell for leather. And now we've got Bautista, Toprak, and Raya giving it hell for leather with one another. And if another rider gets on the podium for whatever reason, then that's great. Whereas in MotoGP now, it's a case of, yeah, Bagnaia could win the race, or he could finish seventh. Quartararo might win the race, or he'll finish eighth. And it's like, you haven't got these top guys who are like invincible anymore. And I think that's what MotoGP is missing, and that's where World Superbikes has gained. And then the level of talent on the World Superbike grid this year with Domi Agata, for example, who was sixth, I think, of the testing. You've got Bassani, who's going improving year on year. You've got Daniela Petrucci, you've got Remy Gardner, you've got obviously Bradley Ray on there as well. You've got so many talented riders, and you think that maybe these guys can beat the top three, and it's interesting to see if they can or they can't. But yeah, and the racing, like I said, like every corner there's an overtake, and it's amazing to watch, really.
Yeah, I mean, the overtakes are the big part. And going back to what you said a couple of minutes ago with the superstars, Valentino Rossi now gone, and saying that these invincible riders were back then, Marc Marquez is the best example because they basically counted on him carrying on Rossi's legacy. He
Yeah.
was invincible until the accident happened, and now he is just a good rider because
Hmm.
he's not on this level anymore where he was in 2019.
Yeah, he's more of a shell of himself. I think that is still in there. That Marquez we saw in 2019 is still in there, but at the moment he's kind of just a shell of himself until he can kind of get that monster inside of him and pull it back out of its cage, kind of thing. But I think obviously his health, his arm, and mentally where he's at will all play a factor in that. But I do think Marquez has that ability to like pull that animal like out the cage, as I've said. But yeah, it just depends on him. And I think having a rider like that is incredible for the sport because, yes, it's okay. It's a bit boring to see Marquez win every race, but when you have riders like Quartararo and Bagnaia and Nea Bastianini doing absolutely everything they can to beat him, like when we saw Aragon last year or the year before, 2021, Bagnaia versus Marquez, that was exceptional race because of the overtakes, because you saw Bagnaia doing all he can to beat this invincible rider. And I think that's where MotoGP is missing at the moment. And when you see like in World Superbikes, you see Axel Bassani, for example, doing all he can to try and beat Toprak in a race, for example, and it's incredible to watch. But MotoGP doesn't have that. You have just the rookies and the young guns dicing it up with the top guys, and that's great. But it doesn't seem like there's any competition anymore. It doesn't seem like there's any like the competition because it's so similar. It's just a case of like you get a load of marbles and chuck it down a thing, and one of them eventually is going to finish first. But it's not a case of being the guy, the face of the sport, finishing first anymore. If you had
Yeah,
if
I
you had
feel
those
like a moto.
marbles, sorry, if you had those marbles and one of them is gold, you might root for that one a little bit more, and kind of thing. That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking. But
yeah, and you also want to have the anti-hero, and this is basically what Marc Marquez is for a lot of MotoGP fans because
mm,
of the 2015 debacle.
yeah,
And what's absolutely crazy to me that he's trying to get this new image right now with his new manager, and his social media content changed so much. But I feel like when you want to convince the old school MotoGP fans who've been there for 2015, for example, and who've seen Rossi and seen Marcus going up to MotoGP and absolutely destroying everybody, when you
mm,
want to convince those people, you have to a little bit come clean with everybody, be like,
mm,
hey, maybe I fucked up. Why is there no telemetry data released in 2015? Because
yeah,
if I was Dorna, or if I was running Dorna, let's say,
mm,
I would want to know, and I would like to the fans to know, because it's, to me, very, very crazy that Marc Marquez all of a sudden in Australia was battling with Rossi, and then closed like a 1.5 second, 2 second gap in 2 laps or whatever,
you
and beat
close a
Lorenzo
second
for
on
the
the
win.
last lap, a full second on the last lap.
Yeah, then goes to Malaysia and all of a sudden battles with Rossi, 15 seconds behind Danny Pedrosa. I don't know,
Mm,
maybe it's just 5 seconds, I don't know. But usually he isn't so much slower than Danny Pedrosa.
yeah,
And goes to Valencia, and we know how Marc Marquez rides. We know that he is absolutely as aggressive as you can get, basically, and sometimes even more. And when you look back at 2013 in Jerez, where he bumped into Lorenzo just to overtake him, and in Valencia, he wouldn't even try a thing except
mm,
Dani Pedrosa. When he overtook him, he went straight back at him. That was like 2 seconds of how the real Marc Marquez is. And then he's just cruising behind. This upset like the whole MotoGP community, because everybody knew what was going on. And therefore, I would like to see the telemetry data. I would like to have somebody who knows how to analyze this, because I certainly can't. Tell
mm.
me what the fuck was going on there.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, I don't know, because I remember when the whole thing happened and everybody said about Rossi kicking Marquez and kicking his front lever, and Honda said that there is evidence to prove that, and then were blocked from ever releasing that information. So that's an interesting one to see, because I don't know. Obviously, we don't know. No one knows the facts. There are people who know the facts, but nobody in the media or anything knows the facts of how, who, what, how, why, when. All we could do is kind of speculate. I think in the Phillip Island one, obviously Marquez did close a full second on the last lap to Jorge Lorenzo to win the race. I think Marquez probably was running at about 80% that race, but at the end of the day, I think in that race, he just wanted to have fun more than anything. When you have a good battle like that, like sometimes you just want to, as most riders like Lorenzo, just wants to pull away and get away with it. Marquez historically has been a rider who actually enjoys a bit more of a battle. So if you can ride at 80% and still scrap with Iannone, Rossi, Lorenzo, why not? Especially knowing that you've got that extra in the tank at the last lap to still win the race if you need to. It's like pulling the AI down a little bit, messing around with them for a bit of a battle, and then just making sure on the last lap you still win the race, and then in Sepang, after Rossi made the comments in the press conference, Marquez again was probably playing some mind games with Rossi at that point, just going, okay, you wanna do that? Okay, let's have a little battle on track, see who's the bigger man kind of thing. And then obviously that ended how it ended. And then at Valencia, because of how Sepang ended, I'd be surprised if Marquez did anything but sit behind Lorenzo and help Lorenzo win the championship after what obviously Rossi had said to him. I don't agree with any of it. I don't agree with Rossi in that. I don't agree with Marquez. I don't agree with anybody. I think both of them were just absolute petulant children, to be honest. And Jorge Lorenzo just was able to just go, all right, you two have a scrap and I'm going to win the championship. Yes, it was sad to see Rossi lose his 10th. But in the same way, Rossi shouldn't have bitten. Marquez had that little fishing line there, and Rossi bit, and Rossi unfortunately had his pants pulled down by Marquez because of it. And I think, yeah, it's just mind games that just went a bit overboard.
Yeah, and I think that basically Lorenzo was the lucky one in there, and it feels like he's a little bit like the devil on your shoulder who is telling Marcus, "Hey, look what he did! Look what he did,"
Mm,
and therefore basically encouraging Marcus to help him, like pointing out how bad Rossi is and all of what he's done.
mm,
But coming back to the whole thing why we started this is that it's okay if Mark Marquez did that because he felt like he was mistreated by Rossi.
yeah.
Because he's a human being, and if somebody's fucking with us, especially when you have such a big ego like Marcus has, you're not letting this sit well with you. But my problem is that he's always acting like the nice guy when he's not. Come clean with everybody, and then it's okay.
I think there's two sides for everyone. I think, like Marquez, not specifically Marquez. I think there's definitely two sides of many riders. Valentino Rossi's definitely got a dark streak through him. I think that's quite apparent over the last few years. I think Lorenzo again has got that little streak in him. I don't think Marquez is like angelic as everybody makes him out to be, and this absolute hero. I do think he's got a streak in him as well, and you can see it on track. Marquez, when that helmet goes down, it's like he's a different lad. Like he's like smiling and happy, but that helmet goes down, and he will absolutely cut you off. He will do anything he can to make that pass happen, and then take the helmet off, and he's all smiling and happy and da 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 da. But he's definitely got that thing where the eyes roll back and turn out like black, and he's just goes for it. Like the red veil comes down, and I think he's definitely got that in him. But I think every rider has to have that in them, especially if you're going to win a championship. You need to have that streak in you where you can absolutely separate yourself from yourself really, and absolutely just send it if you need to. I think Cottararo's got that in him as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think Marquez is obviously doing a lot these days to try and maybe help his image. He's coming, he's like the hero these days. He's the guy who's come back from this massive injury, and I know that he's doing a lot to repair his reputation. His reputation has improved significantly since his accident. Um, a lot of people have a lot more respect for him and things like that. But yeah, I think it's just every rider has that streak in them at some capacity. Some have it a lot more than others. When you look at like riders like Romano Fenati, I think his dark streak is very evident. But then other riders like Marquez has it when he needs it, but can turn it off and on. Same with Rossi, he can turn it off and on when he needs to, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I think they should be honest about it. I mean, just it's like with the Liver King situation. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, yeah,
Like he's been lying to all those people. I'm natural, and he's walking around like a fucking fridge. Just be honest about it. Nobody will judge you for a human reaction, or like not nobody, but you know what I'm saying.
yeah.
For a human reaction is, but not try to act like you were the good guy in this situation because you clearly wasn't. Just come clean about it. Ain't nobody's gonna change it anyway now.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Marquez can or can't do because there's no point talking about 2015 anyway. To be honest, because like yeah, it happened, and yeah, like shit happens, you move on, isn't it? Like yeah, that's me anyway. Like
Yeah,
Marquez
of
knows what he
course.
did or knows what he didn't do, and like yeah, he's moved on, and I think this isn't a dig at anyone in particular, but I think the fans are more wrapped up than about 2015 than the riders. Like I see it all the time, like 2015, and it's like, I guarantee you Rossi and Marquez don't lose any sleep over that. Guarantee you, but the fans, all the time.
Yeah, I mean, Rossi has 9 titles. He's living his best life now in GT3. Have you watched the Bathurst race?
No, I saw some interviews and stuff, but and Rossi seemed quite happy with it. But no, I haven't seen anything from the Bathurst, to be honest. I see it like a tiny bit, but some guy got absolutely robbed, I saw, but that was about it. But
Yeah, I was watching the start yesterday evening at like 7 p.m.
yeah,
And then overnight, the race obviously finished and I didn't stay up. And today I watched some highlights, but I didn't finish the highlights. I was like 2 or 3 minutes before the end, and then somebody interrupted in a good way, not in a bad way.
yeah.
And yeah, then I don't know how it came out, how it finished, but I know that Rossi didn't finish on the podium this time, and they had some problems with the BMW, which cost them the race at the end.
That's a shame, but it's nice to see that he's enjoying his time away from bikes these days. He's found another passion. Yes, it's still racing, but he's found another way to get that adrenaline rush kind of thing.
Yeah. Starting to talk about things that are recent and that are actually relevant for this year is the 2023 season. We had the MotoGP tests, we had the Superbike tests. So, what do you make of a shakedown test where no rider is there? What do you make of this?
I think it'll be interesting. I
I
think,
mean, like, I'm sorry. I mean, like, no rider who's actually starting the race except Augusto Fernandez, because obviously the test riders are there.
yeah,
But yeah, you know what I mean.
yeah. I think the shakedown's good because it obviously allows the manufacturers and things to bed in the bikes and make sure that they're and test riders to kind of get any information they need. Because when it goes to the riders, these bikes have to be perfect because obviously they've got very limited testing days anyway. So to have the shakedown where Pirro and obviously Jonas Folger now and Stefan Bradl can test these bikes and make sure these bikes are in the condition the riders need them to be, and track's now got tarmac on it. No, not tarmac, rubber on it. And they've got some data so the riders can kind of build some base settings and maybe help. I know Danny Pedrosa did some work with Jack Miller's team today. So it's about maybe helping the team members as well bed into it and get used to working in the new thing because he might come from Ducati, for example. Augusto Fernandez, it gives him some more track time because he will need it. But yeah, I think it's really good, and I'm quite excited to see how the actual testing plays out in a few days.
Yeah. Do you look at the shakedown test and draw any conclusions from it?
No, there's no point because there are some things like you saw Cal Crutchlow today, got 330 kilometers an hour out of his Yamaha, which is really good. I think Honda had the same. I think Aprilia, I think, had 332. So, it's clear to see that Yamaha have come back with a stronger engine on top speed anyway. So you can kind of create those kind of what's the word? You can create those images in your head that yes, okay, Yamaha have brought something to the test, but until Quartararo gets on it, until Quartararo then has his media debrief at the end of the day, we can't draw any conclusions until these riders have got on it. And even then, things can change between now and the first race in Portimao. So it's just a case of working out. It's not a very good idea to look at times. If say Bastianini finishes 16th, it doesn't mean he's going to finish 16th at Portimao. It just means that he is probably trying to work his way around the GP23 that he only got on at Valencia, for example, after hopping off at 21. It's just about getting laps for most of these riders and just refining what they need to do heading into the season.
Yeah, I mean, look at Paul Espargaro, what he did last season. He was incredibly fast in the tests, and even he was very good in the first race. But then I don't know
And
what
nothing.
exactly happened. I heard that they changed the tires, or maybe it was just for Indonesia, I don't know, but something happened obviously where he lost all his feeling for the Honda.
Yeah, I can't remember specifically what happened, to be honest. I think it was something to do with tires, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
I was counting on you.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry to disappoint. I'm good at that.
So, what are your expectations for Pecco and for Enea this season?
I think they'll do well. I can see them obviously battling for the championship. It'd be kind of stupid to kind of cast them out of that, to be honest. I think both of them will do really well, but I think if Yamaha can come back with a better bike, if Honda can pull it out of the bag as well, I think it's not going to be as much of a walk in the park for them. I think of the two, I think Anea will be stronger than Pecco. But the issue with Anea is he lacks that consistency. Where Pecco can do it at every track, or at least get on the podium at every track, Anea can get on the podium, win a race, and then finish 16th the next time out, and then 11th, and then 12th. And that's where Anea's pitfall is. Whereas Bagnaia has that consistency to do it across a full season. So I think that'll be quite interesting if Ducati can kind of unlock that consistency within Anea. With the GP23 in under him as well, I think that will really help him. But yeah, I think for Anea, it's just maybe a year of learning, and then I wouldn't be surprised if he fought for championship and maybe even won it this year. But next year would be probably the year where he will really go for it, I think.
What's very interesting to me is the step from Quartararo from 2020 to 2021, where he was in the satellite team and then joined the factory team, and he was on another level all of a sudden.
Mm.
And he was inconsistent as well, and all of a sudden he was consistent. He was good always, but now then he was really good. And I feel like the same could happen with Enea,
Mm.
because he had a very, very good start to the season in Doha, and then he kind of went a little bit up and down, like you said. But towards the middle of the season, he kind of figured out how to qualify, and then he was getting dangerous. And I feel like when he's going into the factory team, there has to be some kind of difference what being in a factory team makes, that he can unlock this consistency, because this is at the end of the day what wins your championship. Was what Pecco did is very unusual.
Yeah, it's pretty much unheard of, a 91 point trailing by 91 points to win the championship. It's never been done ever in motorsport history, not even in Formula One. So, but it's all down to consistency, and obviously inconsistency from Quartararo as well, on the other hand. But yeah, it's a lot of just finishing races, not crashing, getting those podiums, getting those points and things like that. And I think, yeah, when Anea steps onto that factory bike, where the 21 wouldn't have been consistent because it just wasn't a track that was well suited to it. I think where the 23, when he's on the 23, it will be more suited to him in all areas. And as a factory rider, he has access to, the best technicians that Ducati can offer him. They've got, loads of data from Michele Pirro if he needs to use it. He's got, everything he needs. He can adjust the bike. He can change the bike exactly how he pleases him. If the chassis needs to be amended in a certain way, or the fairing needs to be amended in a certain way, he can do it because he's a factory rider.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. And what I'm really interested in is, of course, Yamaha, not necessarily Fabio, because I expect Fabio to be good, but I'm very interested in Frankie. First of all, what the fuck is up with him, anyways? Because he was on his way to win the title. If there wasn't an engine blow up in Jerez, he would have won then.
Mm.
Then 2021, he has the injury, and he hasn't been the same ever since. So, what do you think is up with him? And do you think with a better bike he can kind of get back into form?
Yeah, I think with a better bike under him, he could definitely do well. Do as well as we expect him to do, which is winning races and battling for a championship. I think having that bike not fully there for him has really hindered him. His obviously knee has had a big issue for him, but the fact that he's now running around playing football and stuff like that tells me his knee's actually completely fine these days. But I know that these things do take a while to come back from. But I think with some more power and the Franco will do really well. I think that jump from the 19 to the 21 at the time was massive for him, humongous for him, and he's then had to basically spend time learning a new bike. And then before he knows it, the season's over, he's on to the 22 now, and he's still trying to work it out and find power where you shouldn't find it, which is what Quattro can do really well. So it's just a case of him basically trying to build on last year. I think having Quattro there and his data there will help him a lot, but he really needs to get out of the bag this year, otherwise he'll be shipped off to anywhere, really. I don't really know where you'd find him.
What do you make about the whole Jorge Martin to Yamaha speculation?
I think it's very plausible. Jorge Martin's even said himself he really wants to go there. I don't know why. I think he just wants a factory seat. I know if I was a rider, I'd rather take a Pramac GP23 than a factory Yamaha. It just doesn't make sense to me, anyway. I think he wants a lot of riders like Cal Crutchlow back in the day will leave a factory to get to leave a satellite team, to get a factory bike, no matter where it is. Like when Cal Crutchlow went from a tech-free Yamaha to the factory Ducati, spent a year there and was like, yeah, this ain't it, and went to LCR Honda. I think Jorge Martin probably feels bitten by Ducati, probably feels that he deserved that bike over Enea, probably feels that, it's been hard done by Ducati, and that probably is quite deep rooted within him. And he will change teams to the Yamaha on principle that Ducati didn't give him that factory seat, even if it is career suicide for him. He's been very vocal and open and honest about his interest to go to Yamaha, which could hinder him if Yamaha then turn around and go, actually, no, we don't want you. We're going to keep Franco Morbidelli for another year. And Jorge Martin's already basically told Ducati that he wants to go to Yamaha. And then you sat there like, oh, great. I don't have anywhere to go. So it's a tricky one. It really is tricky. I think he needs to kind of be careful and maybe look at his options and go, you know what, this Ducati, yes, it's not bright red, but it's still the best bike on the grid. It still won the championship last year. Count your blessings rather than looking at what you can't have and thinking you should have that instead.
Yeah, I feel like this is a instance where ego could get into your way, because I don't know how you would justify from Jorge Martin's perspective that you should get the factory seat over Enea. From the outside, it's pretty clear to me because Enea was winning races, Jorge Martin wasn't. Enea showed his development more than Jorge Martin did. Enea actually stays more on the bike. He isn't as injury prone as Jorge Martin is. So therefore, from the outside, I have no reasonable explanation why Ducati would choose Jorge Martin over Enea Bastianini. Do you know if there have been any promises made behind the scene, or if Jorge Martin is just delusional?
I think talks have definitely happened. I don't know that for sure, but I believe talks have happened, but that's literally as far as it's gone. I think Jorge Martin has just gotten into his head a little bit that he's going to be a factory Yamaha rider. But he needs to prove himself because, yes, he had an amazing rookie year, won a race, got a load of podiums and stuff like that. Had a massive comeback after his obviously horrendous Portimao crash, but he couldn't improve on that this year or last year. And he did struggle. He didn't win a race. Yes, he got a load of podiums and stuff, but he also crashed out of a shed load of races. Had really bad results, was really inconsistent, and kind of lost his head a little bit. So it depends on Jorge Martin and if he can prove to Yamaha, because yes, of course we know he's a good rider and stuff, but Yamaha still have to buy into the idea of hiring Jorge Martin. And if he keeps crashing, he keeps maybe slating Ducati and stuff like that, then he's not going to get it because Yamaha will just go, no, we're not going to take a rider like that. And with Toprak in the air as well, although Toprak doesn't want the M1, he really did not like riding that M1. Yamaha could still look to maybe put Toprak in there. So it's Jorge versus Toprak, and Yamaha wouldn't want to risk Jorge when they've got Toprak there.
But wouldn't Toprak be a bigger risk coming from Superbike where everything is different?
Yeah, I think Toprak would be in some areas. The fact that he hated the M1 for one, the bike's different, the brakes are different. He can't actually ride the bike how he'd want to ride it. Whereas Jorge would be less of a risk in some areas, but then Jorge could also just be Toprak. At least can learn and adapt to the bike, to the M1, and it would be understandable if Toprak wasn't winning races straight out of the gate. Whereas Jorge Martin, because he's a race winner, a proven race winner, if he's not winning races out the gate, it's anything other than that, or at least top fives, top tens, is is a disappointing result, is a disappointing start. Whereas Toprak, you kind of know what you get with Toprak kind of thing, so it's less of a risk.
Has there ever been in the modern MotoGP era, so let's say from 2013 onwards, has there ever been a superbike champion who went to MotoGP and has been really successful?
Cal Crutchlow would be the only one because he won 3 races and he came from World Superbikes. But apart from
Didn't
that,
he come from the Super Sport?
he went no, he went Super Sport and then he went Superbike and then he went because he was James Tosland's teammate
Oh,
in
okay.
2010. But then
Okay.
after 2013, no, because we had Baz, we had Eugene Laverty as well, and they couldn't hack it.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think that Yamaha should hire Toprak because
I don't think they
Toprak is
should.
really good in what he does. Toprak is good in Superbike and leave him there. Basically the same with Jorge Martin and Ducati. If you're on a good bike, I mean, yes, you're not a factory rider, but Pramac to me is the best seat in the house because you A, get the best bike on the grid. B, don't get all the attention from that the factory boys are getting. So your
Mm.
life is a lot calmer. The expectations aren't as high. And I don't know how the money is from Pramac and how the money is from Ducati,
Yeah.
but this would be a reasonable argument why you should go to a factory team.
Mm. But money was always going to be a big pulling point for most riders, especially going between a satellite and a factory squad. But I don't think a rider should base their entire career off of a pay packet either, because you know, like yeah, you can be sat there in your nice little mansion with millions in your pocket, but if you look back and go, I really wish I hadn't made that move because I'm now sat here with millions in my pocket because my career was cut short by 5 years because I made that dumb move to Yamaha. Like you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't feel like you've fulfilled yourself and you've blown a chance like that, that'll eat you up more than not having an extra £1,000,000 in your pocket would.
Yeah. Talking about Yamaha, I have a speculation because for a long time I had the speculation that Pedro, after he will win the Moto 2 championship, will go to Repsol Honda. This
Mm.
was like my theory.
Mm.
But then Joan Mir got signed for 2 years. Marc Marquez obviously has a contract, and there isn't necessarily a place for Pedro except Marcus retires or Joan Mir pulls a Joan Zarco or Honda will do a Alex Marquez with Joan Mir and put him into LCR. I
Mm.
don't know how the contract looks, if they are allowed to do that or whatever, but it seems pretty unlikely that Pedro will go to Repsol now. But there still is a possibility of him going to Yamaha and Yamaha choosing Pedro over Jorge Martin.
Mm.
So let's first of all talk about his 2023 season. I guess he's the obvious title favorite.
Mm.
So, and then afterwards, what are his realistic MotoGP options?
Yeah, I think Pedro is definitely a favourite for the championship this year. I think Pedro obviously won an incredible amount of races. I think it was 3 races, broke his leg and still was winning races after that. Um, Obviously, he's one of the most naturally gifted riders I think we've seen since Marc Marquez, and fully is like championship worthy this year. I think if he's not battling for that championship, something is severely wrong somewhere. If he wins the championship, he's backed by Red Bull, of course, who'll want to keep him. So a Red Bull sponsored team would be where he would probably end up. But the issue then is if he moves up to MotoGP, say next year, where would they go? Because Augusto Fernandez, yes, could be swapped out like they did with Remy Gardner, but then it leaves a sour taste in Augusto. It also proves that KTM haven't learned their lesson, even though they've said that they are looking to keep Augusto Fernandez for 2 years. So maybe they'll get rid of Paul, but again, that would be detrimental to their development because without Paul, it's been really bad. So then KTM has sat in a conundrum of maybe keeping Pedro Moto2 for another year, but if Pedro doesn't want that, and then Jorge Martin and Zarco, their contracts are up at the end of this year. So maybe Pedro could slot in at a Pramac Ducati, for example, where there's no energy drink sponsor issues. Maybe Pedro could slot in on Yamaha, but that's a Monster Energy issue there. And maybe Pedro will change. Maybe Pedro will say, no, I want to be backed by Red Bull still. So a lot of issues that arise on the sponsorship side of things. For example, Top Rack wouldn't go to factory Yamaha because because he's a Red Bull athlete and will not change from Red Bull. There's no way in hell Top Rack will change from Red Bull, which causes obviously big issues. Cal Crutchlow refused to change to Repsol Honda because Red Bull, and he refused to drop Monster Energy. So Pedro's then sat in a conundrum of where can he go? Well, somewhere where they'll allow him to run Red Bull, but where is that? I don't know. Pramac Ducati seems like the only viable option at the moment, given that the contracts are up at the end of this year. But apart from that, everyone else is locked down for 2 years, so he's in a bit of a tricky situation there.
Yeah, I hope and I pray every day that Pedro doesn't end up at KTM. I hope he's smart enough to realize that this bike isn't the bike you want to be on. This whole management isn't capable of doing or isn't capable of producing a competent bike with a good team structure and everything. Because if they were, they wouldn't do such stupid moves they're doing. And I don't know how his contract situation is. I hope he was smart enough to not sign a contract past 2023. Or if, then there is some kind of option to get him out of there. But the Pramac seat is a very interesting seat indeed, especially if Jorge Martin goes to Yamaha. But with the whole sponsorship deal, I don't know how, because at the end of the day, it comes down to money. And I don't know how much Red Bull is paying Pedro. And since Pedro isn't the superstar Marc Marquez is, it wouldn't be too much, I guess. And therefore, I could imagine that if Monster says, hey, I want him, because he's the next Marc Marquez, let's say, that they will make an offer to switch to Monster, and Pedro will happily do it. It's very possible because sponsorship at the end of the day is just comes down to money, and whatever they will do, they will be. They will make sure that he will be in a situation which is most beneficial to his career, because you don't want to be a Remy Gardner where KTM drops you. You don't want to be a Raul Fernandez. I was just going to say Augusto, but yeah, you don't want to be a Raul Fernandez who has to switch bikes every year. I mean, he went from Moto3 to Moto2 to MotoGP and now to Aprilia, which is absolutely crazy.
He's had 5 different bikes in
And
5
therefore, I
years.
hope that they will figure something out for him.
Yeah, I think Pedro Costa's entire rest of his career kind of depends on other riders at this point because he's got the talent, he's got, the minerals there to actually fight for a MotoGP World Championship, depending on external circumstances. So depending on other riders and where other riders go. And then if, for example, Monster Energy want to buy him out of his deal, if KTM decide to, drop off another rider for him because he signed a deal for 2022, 2023, and a +1 for 2024 in MotoGP with KTM if they can hit that clause. But many riders have managed to get out of that. I know Jorge Martin was meant to ride for Tech 3 and got out of it because of a clever clause in his contract whereby if the Tech 3 hadn't scored X amount of points by X amount of point in the season or the year, he could get out of that contract, and it was 2020. So by the time it hit June, no bikes had even gone around the tracks. But because that contract clearly said what it did, he was able to activate that clause and leave the contract and sign for Pramac Ducati instead.
This is my all-time favorite management move. Whatever Jorge Martin is paying his manager is absolutely worth it, because
Yeah.
imagine he was on this fucking shitbox.
Yeah, his career would have gone even worse, and he wouldn't even have a chance at going for the Yamaha seat at that point. If he's been on KTM for 2 years, he might be in
Yeah.
World Superbikes at this point.
What's your thought on Remy in 2023? Because in Superbike, I have no knowledge at all. I don't know what the fuck's going on there. So please educate me.
I think he'll do well. He's got 3 races a weekend now, so he has to deal with 2 main races and a sprint race. So that'd be quite interesting. I think the level in World Superbikes is a bit different, whereby there are bigger gaps between the riders on the races, and you really have to be able to nail that pace of the lap record to even fight for the top 3. But Remy has shown that he's got some good pace. I think having his much more experienced teammate of Dominic Agata next to him, who knows not only the World Superbike Championship really well, but obviously knows how to win 2 World Championships back to back as a rookie, really will help him. I think on Remy's side, I think being in Moto 2 for so long, winning the Moto 2 Championship, coming from MotoGP will help and hinder him, because he won't be used to racing so many times over a race weekend, which means his fitness will obviously be tested. But I think Remy can crack out some good results. I think top 5s are definitely within realm, maybe a podium if there are some issues. I mean, La Corona managed to get a podium as a rookie, so I don't see why Remy couldn't. Remy's on the GRT as well, which Garrett Gerloff was really good on. Really good bike, really good setup team, really well set up team, sorry. But it very much depends on the other riders. I don't know if he will be able to fight consistently against Raya, Bautista, and Toprak, because no one can. But it'll be interesting. I think Remy will do really well in the series, and it's just basically a case of seeing how it pans out, really.
Yeah. A happy rider is a fast rider, I guess. And he seemed to be very happy about the Yamaha until now.
Mm.
I don't know how it will look when the Ducati flies by on the straight,
Mm.
but I guess he will do better than in MotoGP.
Yeah, he'll definitely do better than he did in MotoGP. Absolutely.
And I would like to switch gears on something, because we will do a Q&A at the end. There were a lot of interesting questions for you. And
Okay.
there's one which I wanted to ask anyway, so I will just go on with it. Is you started Everything Motor Racing like 8 years ago, right?
Yeah, that's right.
How did it all started? How did you get to a point where you say, "Hey, I want to do this"? And how did this develop to a point where, as far as I'm concerned, you're making your money now off social media, right?
Yeah, that's correct. What happened? Oh gosh, I was like 17 years old. I was a bit of a wiry teenager, a bit of a cocky, arrogant idiot, to be honest. But I liked the MotoGP, and I like talking about MotoGP, and so I was involved in like a load of like Facebook groups at the time that talked about MotoGP, and I ended up being like an admin for a few of them, and ended up falling out with everybody in those groups and getting banned from said groups. I was like, "Oh, screw this! I want to make my
What
own
did
place
you
where I can
do?
talk." Oh, just like arguing with people mainly, because that's what you do as a cocky 17-year-old, apparently. And so I was like, right, I want my own place about MotoGP. That I can talk about MotoGP, but I can put my own opinions out, and it's like my own opinion. And yes, you can argue in the comments, but it's my opinion, and that's that. And so I started doing that back in 2017 and just making posts. And at the time, I didn't understand a lot of things. I didn't understand how the world of MotoGP worked. I didn't understand copyright, like, with photos and things like that, and using, photos from photographers, stuff like that. And yeah, just posted things about MotoGP, and it kind of grew and grew and grew and grew. And, I gained a lot of friends. And then I realized like some people in the paddock, for whatever reason, didn't like me, even though I'd done nothing wrong, which is very weird. And yeah, it just kind of grew to a point now where I can, yeah, just like it's not my only source of income. It's not my job, for example, but I do run it as like kind of full time as my thing. Like Everything Motor Racing is a business now, and I make my entirety of my income is through that business, but it's not solely from Everything Motor Racing as a page, but instead as an entire media company, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would like to get into this because I've never seen a sponsorship deal or anything on your page.
No.
And yeah, please enlighten me on how you do this.
So I get a lot of money that come through the podcast. People will send donations and things like that from the podcast. We also have things in the works to help people like look at MotoGP. Of course, we'll earn money from it, but what we're going to do with that, it'll be reinvested straight back into the whole project kind of thing. Anyway, I make money from posting things on my stories. Like I get a lot of riders asking for promotion. A lot of riders and pages and stuff will come to me, teams and things, and ask me to promote things. And so I'll promote it on my story, sure, but I'm not doing it for free. And so yeah, I'll share your reel, I'll share your post, I'll share your thing because yes, because of the amount of people who watch my story, every story view counts as a view on their reel and on their video. And so if I share my story to them, they're instantly going to get nearly 10,000 views on their story or on their reel. And so I'm not doing that for free. So they'll send it through, I'll charge
Yeah.
them, they pay it, and then bang, I'll share my thing to their story. It's just a harmless motorbike post, and
So,
maybe I should hashtag add it, but it's fine.
aside from the view count, what benefit would a rider or whatever a person wants to promote things on your page would get if you post them into your story or if you make a post about their race or whatever it might be?
Um, Helps with sponsors for sure. Like a lot of sponsors these days, your leather suit sponsors, your helmet sponsors, things like that, will look at your social media profiles and judge whether or not them investing in you will gain a good return on investment for them. And and if riders got reels on their profile and they've got like 200 views, 300 views, it's not going to do very well. Whereas if they've got reels on their profile that's got 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 views on it, suddenly you become a lot more marketable as a rider. You become a lot more proficient. You become a lot more, marketable. And so people will then buy into riders like that. I also work with a number of riders as their manager, and I help them get sponsorship deals. I help them, I liaise with teams with them for teams. I liaise with teams for them as well. As the motor racing marketing thing. But I use basically the profile and learning how to do a lot of things to then gain myself access to things. For example, clients, for example, running companies' social media profiles for them. I can use my experience in for motor racing to do that, but I can do that within the industry. So I can run a race team's profile, for example, on social media because of the experience of for motor racing, like a CV. I can gain graphic design clients, because I make like little posters that go on the page every so often, and people reach out to me and go, "Can you do that for my business?" Yes, okay, and then I'll work for them that way. So a lot of the thing, although I don't specifically make money from motor racing by posting hashtag ad content or brands and like, look at this suit, buy this suit, for example, I make my money via leveraging what I've done on there and what I've achieved and what I can do by showing my abilities of what I can do. I then use that as an ability to then prove to a client or a potential client that I can do this stuff for you, kind of thing.
Okay. And you said you're managing riders. Are you allowed to talk about who you're managing?
No, sorry.
Okay. So we have a rider X who is running in, is it the GP?
I don't know. I don't
Is
know. I
it
don't
in GP
know.
or is it like,
I can't
is it
say.
superbikes? Is it local?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't say,
Is it a
unfortunately.
rider in, is it a rider in Moto America who is sponsored by Everything Motor
Well,
Racing?
There is a rider in Moto America with my logos on his bike, yes, but it's not him. It's not Max Flinders.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
How did you get the sponsorship deal there?
Um, Everything Motor Racing had a website. I don't really post on it much these days because I just don't have the time. Because unfortunately, MotoGP is very time consuming, and I don't have anyone to write on there for me full time because I want to pay them, and I haven't got the money to pay them. But there is a guy on who will submit content to that website every so often, and he was sponsoring Max Flinders and was putting just a random logo on there on the bike. And so he said, "Do you want me to put the Everything Motor Racing logo on the bike?" And I went, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" And so now my logo's on that bike because of that, basically, which is really cool. They write content for my website, and in return, my logo goes on their bike. So,
I remember reading an article about Jack Miller on your website after he won in Jerez, I believe, in 2021.
yeah.
But you don't do this anymore?
No, the website is still there, and I can still log in and post content if I want to, but just became too time consuming. Every session afterwards, you're rushing around to write this content. You're getting the social media posts up. You're writing a thing about the about the session and things like that. And unfortunately, as the years have gone on, my love for MotoGP has dipped quite significantly, and I just don't love it that much anymore. And I just don't have the time either. I just do not have the time, the mental capacity. I was working 100-hour weeks easily in 2021. And then it just becomes obviously a massive mental toll for you. It just really does just destroy your head. I was burnt out kind of thing. And then now they're doing the sprint races this year, and I'm taking a step back. I'm taking a step back. I'm not going to be on it with all the content anymore. I'm not going to be absolutely hammering the content the second it finishes because mentally that's just too much. It's too much stress. It's too much anxiety about getting these content posts out, and it's just really damaging for your mental health, to be honest. So yeah, with the website, I couldn't continue doing the website for that reason. It was just too much, unfortunately. Too much for one man to run all the social media content and the podcast and the website. Yeah, it was just too much, unfortunately, and not get paid anywhere near what I should get paid for it. Because the website was generating really good money, but it wasn't enough still.
Okay, and when we talk about the podcast, how long did you do the podcast, or do you do the podcast?
We've been doing it for like 2 years nearly, I think now. Yeah, we've got like 87 episodes out.
Nice. And do you make your money from the podcast just from donations, or is it more?
Yeah, mainly from donations, but we are looking at ways to kind of make some money from the podcast in other ways. And that means we can reinvest that back into the podcast, buy better equipment, better microphones, better headsets, all these kind of things that you need to run a podcast, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I know because I'm a little bit jealous because I don't make money at all. I just pay money. I
Yeah.
fly to Spain. This is
Yeah.
money. I
Yeah.
have a hotel. This is money. I have
Yeah.
the whole equipment. This is money. And then, yeah, the writers have been kind to me and they're doing it for free.
Mm.
And I'm very thankful, for example, that you put my content into your story without me paying it.
Mm. Yeah.
So thank you very much for this. But yeah, at the moment, it's just for me doing it because I like it. I like to talk about MotoGP. I like to get to know those riders because they are very interesting and very, very kind people. I never
Mm.
had a bad experience with anybody. And what's wild to me, even those 18-year-olds, Kelso, for example, or Zonta, he's 17, they're so mature for their age. You
Yeah,
talked
they
about
are.
being a cocky 17-year-old, and I remember it very well how I was back then, and I was nowhere near the maturity that those guys are at right now, and it's
Mm.
crazy to me.
Yeah, I was the same. Yeah, it's crazy. Like when I speak to Zonta, I mean, it depends what type of Zonta you get because I've played video games with Zonta, and I tell you, on camera and off camera, he's a very different gentleman. But yeah, but yeah, when you see him in the media stuff, yeah, he is so mature for his age, and he is really, yeah, he's a good example. Same with Kelso, and same with Sean De La Kelly, for example. They're all really top riders and just top human beings in general, because they have to be. They have to grow up really early on and do these things early on in their careers, which makes them, I guess, stronger when they get to older age.
Yeah. And a little bit about your podcast. You only do the audio podcast, and what's your goal with it? Do you want to expand in more like a video content form, maybe, or do you want to do it just the way you're doing it? What are your plans, your goals with it?
I think video content would be great, and I would like a video podcast, but again, it's time, it's effort, it's money. Again, I'm like, do I have the time to sit there and edit video alongside recording the audio and editing the audio? No. And do I have the patience for that? No. And like, we are looking at some point, to kind of go and do live podcasts, and we go into the paddock and things like that and do podcasts with riders and things like that. And that'd be great. But it's just about executing it. And I think because my brain's just so full up of all this other stuff, it just mentally cannot take anymore. I'm like a one man band kind of thing. So all the stress of having to organize that and get posts out that same weekend and, deal with the social media side of things, it's just, yeah, I'm like, yeah, just want something a bit more simple, I think. And so audio podcast from home with the four of us, me, Lauren, Jacob, and Cameron. That's more than enough for me at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I can tell you from experience, the whole editing is a shitload of work.
I hate it. It's
And
so much.
I decided that I will sort this out because I have somebody who edits my audio. He
Mm,
did the second podcast with Remy. This is the first audio he did,
yeah,
and he did it as well with Zonta. And
yeah.
because it's so complex in itself, and it's not that much money that you pay for somebody who edits your stuff, especially if you just want basic stuff. I mean, I
Mm,
don't want to have and he offers a package where he cuts out every and every I don't need that. This is a normal conversation. I just want to
mm,
have no background noise. I just want to have the voices be edited in a way that they sound a little bit better, and that's just it. And for the video thing, we filmed it with our iPhones all the time,
mm,
and it's such a pain in the ass with the iPhones because you would think that you could just export it from the iPhone to iMovie or to Final Cut, but it's not that simple actually. And maybe it's just my MacBook. Maybe I'm too stupid for it. I don't know, but it doesn't work this way because either way the video is the size is too big for my MacBook and it just shuts down and it's really annoying,
yeah,
or I can't access the video in itself, so I have to put it on a hard drive, and then yeah, it's a pain in the ass. So
yeah,
I'm I already outsourced the audio, which is a really helpful step for me, and the video I probably will outsource it too because it's just too much editing, especially like the podcast with Zonta. It was 2 hours long, and it was so long to edit the whole stuff. It was just a pain in
yeah,
the ass.
yeah.
But I could really recommend when you can outsource it and have somebody who takes care of the technical side of the podcast, which is
Mm,
also a pain in the ass if you do it on yourself. But the
yeah.
in-person podcasts, they are so much better than the video podcasts. I mean, if
Oh,
we could
yeah.
do it in person, I would love to do it. But yeah, it's not easy to fly everywhere these days,
No.
and yeah, so therefore I really think this is if you have the opportunity to do it, this is a great chance for you to enhance your content a little bit, because I don't know how you got to know the writers you interview, but for example, with Remy, he invited us to his workshop. He showed us the whole thing with his cars there, and we
Oh,
talked
yeah.
for hours. And then he was like, "Oh, I have to go in like 1 or 2 hours," because he was on a date with his girlfriend, and then we were like, "Fuck, we need to record the
Yeah,
podcast while
whoops.
we are here."
Yeah.
So we did it, and I believe he came way too late. I felt a little bit sorry, but yeah, this is basically how it went with Remy, with Kelso. We went out in Palma and had a cup of coffee, just talked a little bit,
Yeah.
and it was really great. And what I forgot with Remy, he invited us to go to Rocco's, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm training at Rocco's. Do you want to come tomorrow?" And we were
Mm.
like, "Yeah, of course." And then we just went to Rocco's the next day with him, and it was a really beautiful track. I got to meet Paul Espargaro, who is a
Oh yeah,
very, very kind man. He is super,
nice.
super friendly, but it was also the environment was very, very chill because it was just a normal training day. He was done with training, and
Mm.
I approached him. I was like, "Hey," I introduced myself, and we just talked for 20 minutes or whatever while he was changing, and then he went home, and where we took some pictures. He was super, super friendly, and it was really nice to talk to. But at the Christmas TT at Rockers, there were so many people there, and it was really stressful. And there were like a crowd of people camping basically
My
in
word.
front of his and his brother's van and
Yeah,
taking pictures. There were so many people, and yeah, I
just
didn't want to approach
chaos.
him in this situation because I felt like leave this man alone. He wants to have some
Yeah,
fun.
he just wants to ride bikes. Leave him alone. Like,
Yeah,
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 yeah, that's it.
but that's the dark side of being a MotoGP rider, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I met Pedro. Yeah, I met Pedro there.
Oh yeah,
Asked him to take a picture, and then Remy told him that I run the meme page. I didn't even tell him, and he was like, "Oh, you're doing this?" And I was like, "Yeah." We talked a little bit, but this was also super
yeah,
stressful for him because everybody wanted something, and yeah.
yeah.
But
Of
if
course.
you catch the riders in a calm situation, I never had a bad experience ever. They were
That's
super,
positive.
super friendly people.
Yeah, that's great. That's what you want. And a lot of them are. They're really chill, really happy to just chill and get along with. And it just depends on the racing and where you are. I've sat in many riders' motorhomes and just chatted around and messed around with them, and yeah, and it's nice. But yeah, it just depends how you catch them, what day it is. On a Grand Prix weekend, it'd be very different to if they're just at Rocco's Ranch, for example. Um, but yeah, I'd say most of them are pretty sound. Like they're really a top-notch bunch of people. There's a lot of riders who I would call my personal friends, and I'm grateful for that. And again, it's just through talking to them and realizing that actually, no, they're not these like superheroes or whatever. There are actual like normal people.
Yeah, I really would like to meet Vale someday. I'm
Yes.
betting that he will go to the Nürburgring with BMW at some point, and then
Then
I
jump on
will
it.
buy my paddock pass. Yeah, I
Nice.
know, like Vale,
Yeah. Hello.
kidnap him and bring him home.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah, but I guess you can't catch Vale in a calm situation.
No, just always like I saw a photo from the Bathurst thing the other day, and yeah, absolute chaos. Just like all the fans are around him, and it was just absolute carnage.
Okay, I would like to ask you some questions from the Q&A before we are done.
Yes, this is good.
And I'll just pick a couple of questions which are interesting to me. I don't think we need to answer all of them.
No.
Which the first one is, who's your pick or your picks for the dark horse in the MotoGP Championship?
Dark horse for the championship, Miguel Oliveira
Yeah, on the Aprilia.
on the Aprilia. Yeah. Miguel Oliveira, dark horse, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah.
And in Moto2?
Moto two, Albert Arenas. I think with that IO
Yeah, I was
squad,
gonna say the same.
yeah,
Yeah, I
with that
was
IO
gonna say the
squad, he's
same because
gonna.
everybody's counting him out.
Yeah, he's got that. I don't know what it is about. Like he really impressed me last year. Really impressed me. I think that little addition of the IO spark punch, putting him. I think that can really help him out. For Moto three, I don't know. I said Onshu for my actual championship, I think, but that's not a dark horse. Rueda. I think Jose Rueda, yes, he's a rookie, but he's in the IO squad. He's also won the FIMCV and the Rebel Rookies last year. Yeah, absolutely outstanding rider. So let's say Rueda as a dark horse.
This is not a question. What do you think about Moto2 Alonso versus Pedro?
It's going to be interesting, that's for sure. Both of them were gunning for the Rookie of the Year last year. Lopez lost his head, obviously, at Valencia and crashed. I think both of them are strong title contenders. I think both of them will be battling for the championship the whole way through. I can't see whether the favourite of the two. I can't pick, honestly. Cannot pick who I think would be better.
I think Pedro has the edge because of Ayo.
Yeah, I'd agree because of Io, yeah, and because he's on a Calex, whereas Alonso Lopez isn't on a Calex, but hasn't really hindered him. But I do think that if he was on a Calex, he'd probably be even better.
I don't know how much influence he has on developing the speed up,
Probably
but
quite a
if he
lot.
has, this could be a benefit for him as well.
Yeah, I think he's probably got quite a lot of influence on that bike. You know how it feels and things like that. But yeah, I think of the two, I couldn't pick.
Okay. Yeah, I think Pedro is a little bit calmer. I
Yeah,
thought in Valencia, what's going on with Alonso because he was
so
all over the
erratic, wasn't
place,
he? It's
and
crazy. Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm.
he's usually so calm and so good. The way he handled Australia was so incredible to me.
Mm.
But yeah, I think Ayu is the big advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. IO's like the cheat codes, isn't it? You get an IO and suddenly you can fight for a
Yeah, a
championship.
little bit.
Yeah.
Next question. What step do the manufacturers from Japan need to do to compete with the Italians? And before you answer, I love how he said Italians and not Europeans
Yeah.
because the Japanese manufacturers are already competing with KTM for last place.
Yep. That's it. I think just listen to their riders a bit more. Like Ducati and Aprilia have clearly listened to the input of their riders to the point where they're at the top. You know, whereas Yamaha and Honda have not listened to their riders. Yamaha haven't listened to Quartararo for years. Yamaha didn't listen to Vinales for years. And look where it got them. It got them nothing. Like obviously Fabio Quartararo won the championship last year, not the year before, and that's no mean feat, but no easy feat. Sorry, but I think if they don't listen to their riders, you know, and are thinking of their own intuition, they're not going to go anywhere. They need to listen to their riders a bit more and trust what their riders are saying.
What I've heard once, I forgot who said it, but what I've heard once is that the European manufacturers are building their bikes more around the winglets, whilst the Japanese bikes are just built and then put the winglets on. So especially Ducati, they are
Yeah.
emphasizing way more on their aerodynamic side, and this benefited them very, very much, obviously.
Yes. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I also think that with Yamaha, it's maybe time to move on from Lynn Jarvis. There are a lot of capable replacements there, like Livio Zuppo or maybe Davide Brivio. Do you know anything about him? What he's up to with the Formula One thing?
No, I've no idea because obviously there was talk about him going to Suzuki, and then obviously Suzuki pulled out. But yeah, the Lynn Jarvis thing was controversial. Jeez. But yeah, I don't know. I think Lynn's Lynn. He's great at his job. I can't see any reason to change him out until something drastically goes wrong. I think Lynn's great at the moment. I think if Yamaha continue on this slump, maybe it might be okay to look out. But if Yamaha can recover this year, I think he's all right.
I think he had his time. He was very successful with Rossi and with Lorenzo, but let's be honest, after Lorenzo left or basically after 2015, Yamaha has been on the decline.
Yeah.
And Fabio, he made the impossible basically on the Yamaha and won the title. But to me, Fabio shouldn't be the reference. When I want to judge a manufacturer's performance, I always look at the satellite teams.
Hmm.
Because when you look at Ducati, you know Ducati has a top-notch bike from top to bottom. Every team, I'm sorry, who rides a Ducati is good. Then with Aprilia, what I'm very, very excited on what Raul Fernandez and Miguel Oliveira will do there.
Yeah.
And with Yamaha, the satellite teams, there are nowhere,
No.
absolutely nowhere.
Well, they've literally not got
and the
one.
Yamaha is just
They've not got a
yeah,
salad
the
team now. The
Yamaha
fact that they've
just
jumped, yeah,
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 it's
exactly.
not good enough. And I think with Honda the same. I don't know what the fuck's going on with Honda, but it seems like they counted on Marcus to bring them one championship after another, and basically didn't develop a bike. And
Mm,
after he was injured, I don't know what the fuck was going on there, but they seemed helpless, you know.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, they seem to like put their eggs in one basket. You know, with Marquez and the Honda, Fabio and the Yamaha, and you know, you look at all their other riders and they're struggling. They're sinking. They're not swimming. They're sinking. And I think both of them need to realize that actually, you know, there are more riders that are riding this bike, and to try and look after them a little bit more as well.
There's one question. What does each of you do for a living? Both very nice accounts, by the way. Thank you. I would
Thanks.
answer this first. I studied engineering, and right now I'm working in quality control. And yeah, I'm looking to do maybe some more steps towards an MBA and maybe towards management. That's basically my short term career goal now. And I feel like we covered a little bit on your career side. Is there anything we left out which has nothing to do with motor racing?
No, this is literally my job. So yeah, this is my job. Yeah, just create content for companies, whether it's writing articles, doing graphic designs, running their social media accounts, you know, creating logos, things like that. Editing videos. You know, that's my job basically.
This is not a question, but here somebody wrote that page blocked me long back after I pointed out wrong stats that they posted. Maybe this is the troll from Silverstone.
Maybe, yeah, maybe, yeah. I don't know. No idea. I've blocked so many people. I don't know. If people are being a
Yeah, you're
knobhead,
on
I'll
the
block them.
Simon.
So yeah.
You're on the Simon Patterson route.
Oh god, yeah. No, not that bad. Not that bad. Jesus Christ. But like, yeah, I don't know if someone's rude or whatever. Because I don't know. Like I said, I've blocked a lot of people, but if I've blocked you, because I'll let a lot of stuff slide. Like I'm not like going out blocking everybody, but if you're blocked, it's probably for a reason that isn't to do with you doing stats. Because yes, I get stuff wrong, and I'm always getting shit wrong. You know, we're very human. Um, they probably were like arguing with somebody, or yeah, because I wouldn't block you for
Yeah,
putting stats.
to be fair, he said long back, so maybe it was when you were 18 or 19-year-old
Yeah, it's probably
knucklehead.
a lot younger. Yeah, maybe, probably.
I'll send you the account. I'll send you the account, and you can unblock him if you want to.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I'll have a look.
Yeah, we discussed a little bit on how did it all started. I think we answered this
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
And one question was, how did you get into MotoGP? Thanks to you for your great content over the years. Thank you very
Thank.
much.
Yeah.
And yeah, how did you get into MotoGP in the first place?
It's funny because my mum hated motorcycles, absolutely hated them. My dad liked them, but rode them when he was younger and then didn't. And then when my mum and dad split up, my dad went, I'm going to get a motorbike. And then he met somebody who really liked motorbikes as well. And she introduced us all to motorbikes and MotoGP. And then it all happened from there, to the massive dismay of my mother, who then realized that her eldest son likes motorbikes now,
Oh
basically.
no. Oh no.
Yeah,
How old were you back then?
like 9 or 10 years old. I was quite young.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was always been a part of my life. My dad brought me basically into the sport, but also my mom. So he was a Giacomo Agostini fan back when they were riding at the Nürburgring, all of this crazy stuff, you
Mm,
know. And I don't know when was the last race from MotoGP at the Nürburgring, but I can't
long
remember
time ago.
because it
Yeah.
was way before my time. long time ago. And
Yeah.
I don't know if my dad actually was old enough to watch the races, but he was always a Giacomo Agostini fan. And I can't remember a day in my life where I didn't know about MotoGP. One of my first memories I had was the 20, or like the first MotoGP memory I had was the 2003 GP in Phillip Island, where Rossi, he was like on P8, I believe.
Yeah.
And my dad was in the kitchen cooking something, and I was watching MotoGP. And every time he overtook somebody, I was like, "Yeah, Rossi is P7, Rossi is P6." And my dad was like, "Stop kidding me!" And he was baffled that he was so head and shoulders above everybody else. And
Yeah.
then he won the race at like 11 or 12 seconds and still won it because he had the 10-second penalty.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was
Amazing race.
absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And I remember my sixth birthday, I got a cup with a picture of Valentino on it and a T-shirt.
Nice.
And when I grew out of the T-shirt, my mom made a pillow out of it. And I had this one in my bed for a long time, but after a while it washed out. So it was just a white pillow.
Yeah.
And the cup I still have today. On
Nice.
Christmas, when my girlfriend came over to me and my mom,
Mm.
I made her like a coffee or a tea or something, but in this cup, and I
That
was
mug.
like, if you break this cup, I'm gonna break up with you.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, this is basically the story how I got into MotoGP.
Yeah. It's great.
And last question, which is the most important question before I let you go, is
God.
what's the ad of the meme page?
Secret. You're not having it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had somebody asking me the same. I was like, you can figure it out if you're smart enough.
Yeah, because a lot of people
And
have figured it out and worked it out and found it.
yeah,
So,
said person figured it out a little bit later than I thought
hmm.
because she was like, yeah, I can't find it. It was like, yeah, you don't even have to check his followings. He doesn't follow it. And then she guessed the wrong meme page. I was like, nope, this isn't it. And then she came back to me and it was like, is it this one? I was like, yeah,
The
it is.
profile picture gives it away, I think. The profile picture definitely gives it away.
Yeah, somebody will find it hopefully after this podcast. And
Probably.
thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
I
for
would
having me
love to
on.
do it again someday,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
maybe during the season talk a little bit about what's actually going on instead of killing time during the off season.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, sounds really good.
Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you very much.